Imagine life's challenges as a storm, a force that can either wash us away or spark the change we need. Here, we're the spark that ignites that storm, the fire that fuels it, and the guiding light through it. So, lean in, open your mind, and we'll realize that we are not at the mercy of the storm, but we are the storm. Welcome to We Are the Storm. I'm Jacque, and I'm here with Ashley, and today's episode, we are talking about rainbows. Today's episode is for the ones who are worn thin, the ones who are holding it together with quiet strength that nobody sees. We who are tired in their bones, but still show up for their people, for their purpose, and for themselves. We're talking about the kind of fatigue that doesn't just live in your body, it settles in your spirit. And we're talking about the kind of hope that keeps flickering even when the fire feels low. Because sometimes the rainbow isn't something you see after the storm. Sometimes it's the reason you keep walking through it. But first, before we dive into that, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors.
For years, I searched for answers, tried everything, until I realized healing wasn't something outside of me. It was something within me. And it's within you too. Breathwork, movement, contrast therapy, these aren't just wellness fads. They're your body's way of unlocking the healing it already knows how to do. So the question isn't can you heal, it's will you. I built Reconnect Mind Body to help you answer that. Visit thereconnectlife.com and take the first step.
Welcome back to We Are the Storm. Thank you for sticking in with us for this really important conversation about rainbows. And we are just going to dive in.
Yeah. I can't tell you how much I love this topic.
Me too.
Because when you and I had talked about, what do we want to talk about? Let's talk about some topics and what's up top of mind. That day, the first thing out of my mouth was fatigue. Can we talk about fatigue? Because it's something that I've been feeling a lot lately.
Yeah. Just
with everything that's been going on, a lot of exciting things, moving in great directions, but tired, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like mentally tired, emotionally tired. My husband said to me the other night, he's like, the physical fatigue is so much easier than the mental and the spiritual fatigue. Mm-hmm. Because you can lay down and take a nap, right? I can lay down and I can rest my body. But when I go to bed at night, the wheels just keep spinning and you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like it's just really difficult to deal with. So in framing that in resilience, mm-hmm. right? Because this is why we're here. We're talking about the storm and weathering and becoming the storm.
Yeah.
Fatigue is a huge part of that storm.
Oh my gosh. So much so.
So much so. So what have you found? I tie the rainbow thing in because you're the one that brought in the concept of rainbows.
Yeah.
And I love it. So tell our listeners about how you tether that back to fatigue.
So a couple of things that I just wanted to touch on what you said. I think the word for it is weary. There are times when I call home and I am weary mm-hmm. in my bones, in my soul. I don't know how I'm going to get up and play with my son. I don't know how I'm going to get up in the morning. I just indefinitely want to sleep, and I feel it in my soul, and that's definitely what we're talking about today. And the concept of rainbows is, I don't think I've mentioned this with the listeners, but I work in a personal injury law firm. I am not the lawyer. I do absolutely nothing with the law. I do everything except for the law. And I was just thinking one day that when we're talking about personal injury, when we're talking about accidents, when we're talking about trauma, that's what we talk about. We talk about the trauma, the accident, the bad things, but rarely do we talk about why do we go through all the healing? Why do we show up at all of the appointments? Why do we still get up and take our kids to school? And I feel as though that conversation made me realize that it's bigger than just personal injury, just accidents, just trauma. Mm-hmm. It's overall, right? If we don't have that rainbow that we focus on, that glimmer of hope when everything seems dark, right? When we're not at the end of the storm, we're really going through it. When we focus on that, it gives us just enough strength to keep going. just enough. When I get home and I just want to cry, I'm so tired and my mind won't stop thinking, I can look at my son and spend 5 minutes with him. 5 minutes. I can do 5 minutes and just connect and sit and be and realize that that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that moment of connection, that beautiful moment that I hope when he gets older, he is going to remember and connect with his kids. That's why I do it, even though I'm tired. And that's the rainbow that I choose to focus on when the storm feels like it's winning. What about you? What do you do when you feel like we're too tired to do this podcast right now? We just have so much going on. What are some of your rainbows?
You know, the rainbow that has really stuck out for me is just being present and being okay with being present. That's a rainbow for me. My rainbows have shifted over time. And like I said in the opening, there's a level of fatigue that I've started to feel recently that it's a little elevated, more than usual, right? And I think it's just the stage of life. I recognize that. I recognize the age of my kids, the challenges that they might be facing and transitions, and change is never easy.
No.
But the rainbows for me is just being able to be very present, and that's okay. Like showing up is enough.
Yeah.
I'm always curious to know, I think all of us, everybody listening, both of us certainly we're under some level of fatigue all the time.
All the time.
Right? What's the tipping point for you? Because I have felt this shift where I'm like, oh, I crossed over. Like I crossed over to this, I'm on the other side of the Gulf now, and I need to know how to approach this in a way that really feeds my own resilience. Because if left unchecked, I will not be able to sustain resilience. So how do you know, like, what is that tipping point for you?
For me specifically, and I feel like I have felt it a couple of times in the past, I don't know, couple of weeks actually, now that we're saying this, it's when I felt like I lost hope. Like when I thought everything that I'm fighting for is worth nothing. Those are the moments where I'm like, storm, take me, I'm done. I have nothing left to give. And I feel as though sometimes it's external. Sometimes it's friendship. Sometimes it's someone showing up just at the moment that I need them. Sometimes it's my husband. Sometimes it's my child. Sometimes it's a random fortune cookie. But there's always something that shows up and says, you can still do this.
Yeah.
You've still got this. You are making more of an impact than you're able to see, right? We had the episode where we were talking about comparison. Maybe we're not always able to see the flowers that we're watering when our bucket is cracked and we're leaving water behind. But then I feel someone shows up to show us that. And you're like, oh, this is why I do this. And you get back up. Sometimes you crawl for a while. Sometimes it's just like a mud run. You are just arm wrestling. But you still keep going. And I think, as you said, as we talk about resilience, it's not perfect.
No.
It's not stationary. It's just movement. I can keep going. And recently I heard something that I really loved. It was a quote by a mentor, and it talked about, if whatever I'm facing feels too big, my first step isn't small enough. And sometimes you say, okay, what can I do? I can do X, and that feels too big. Okay, first step isn't small enough. What can I do? If I can just do one thing, like 5 minutes with my son, I can do 5 minutes with my son. I don't care how tired I am. I can do 5 minutes with my son.
Yeah.
It's making it small enough to create momentum and movement and build off of that.
Yeah, I love that. I really want to hone in on the concept of movement really quickly, because
Absolutely.
when we talk about resilience, especially with, Wild Fig and the movement at step 5, right, which is act, it's always in a directionality, like taking a step forward, even if it needs to be a micro step forward to be doable in that moment. But I also think that there is a movement in elevation and altitude that has really helped me recently. And I think that was how I really got through the level of fatigue that I've been experiencing, was a perspective shift.
Yeah.
I needed to get 30,000 feet up real quick.
Yeah.
And determine what of what I'm dealing with right now is really going to matter in 10 years. What are the things that I care so much about it's causing me so much stress? What's meaningful, in 10, 20 years? And is this going to even be a blip on the radar?
Yes.
And that perspective shift, just getting that altitude, because, you can't stay there. I have to come back down and I have to keep going. But it did give me a measure of relief to that fatigue. It made things lighter for me. It made things smaller that were unnecessarily heavy in the moment. That, right, because I think the fatigue that I'm talking about, maybe lots of you can relate, is that it's not just one thing.
No.
There's 100 5-pounders that are all layered on, and it's just at that moment, at that exact moment when I need to take 10 steps, they're all on me.
Yeah.
So it's 500 pounds.
Yeah.
And being able to just get up to elevation, get to altitude, and recognize, guys, I can set 10 of these off over here, and maybe, I don't need to pick them up again, and then get back down and then keep moving again. That has made a really big difference for me.
I love so much of what you said, and there's a quote that I actually live by Daniel Kahneman. He is my favorite. He is the only psychologist that I know of thus far to ever win a Nobel Peace Prize for his work in behavioral economics. And he has this quote that says, "Nothing is ever as important as we think it is when we think it."
Yep.
And that elevation piece that you just said fits in with that quote, and I didn't realize it, but also it's such a beautiful thing, because when we talk about rainbows, if you are able to take a moment, if you can't go forward and you go up, you'll see that the storm is temporary. You'll see that there's a rainbow on the outside of this. You'll see that even though you think this is endless, that maybe it's just 10 steps more and you're out. But because of all of the dirt and the rain and the storm, you can't see that. So that perspective shift really gives you that rainbow.
Is the rainbow. And I like the concept of a rainbow, not only just because living in Arizona, we live with marvelous things called monsoons, right? We don't get a lot of rain, but when we do, it's dramatic.
It is.
And when you see the thunderhead roll in and, a violent downpour, and then this beautiful rainbow, which oftentimes we'll get just a little sliver off to one side, but it's the colors of the rainbow that are just so symbolic for me of, it's just like a relief, I guess. There's the colors just represent relief. And I think that's where it kind of tethered when I started talking about fatigue, and then you mentioned rainbows about on the other side of the storm, because we talk about being the storm. Being the storm is hard. Being the storm is hard.
Yeah.
And so many times it's easier to relinquish control and be bounced around and tossed around by the storm than being able to take control in a measured way through less than ideal conditions and navigate to the other side of that. when you're so dang tired.
Yeah.
I know, and I never want to minimize that for people, because being the storm and taking control and holding your power and, you know, doing really big things in your life, and it's so important. But taking a moment and recognizing what it's like to be so tired you can hardly open your eyes, and what to do in those moments is just, it's so important.
I think you spoke to a beautiful thing about, I think that there's a moment between I'm withstanding the storm and no, I'm the force that should be reckoned with, where you almost just have to sit in the rain and accept that you're going through it, and that's okay, and that the best way is through it, and rest and pour into yourself, or go to reconnect and do a cold plunge.
Yeah, right.
Or pause, and that's okay. That's okay to take that moment, and that's okay to take that moment more than once, because I think that we can also talk about that, right? It's not a single shift and then it's done.
No, right.
It's a shift and then the storm changes, or it's longer than you anticipated, or it's different than you anticipated, and you kind of have to readjust, and you gotta, am I going left, right, up, down? Which way am I going?
Yeah.
What aligns with my values? And take a moment to readjust, and okay, I am this storm. I am all the things, all of the rainbows, the light, the joy that I bring to this world. I am all these things. And then you keep going again.
How do you find out, you take about the concept of self-care. You take those moments of extreme fatigue, you get up to altitude, you recognize, I need help. I need something for myself. I either need time, I need a massage, I need a conversation, I need, you know, whatever it is. What is, like, how do you recognize that tap? And when do you engage in that? I mean, do you have a practice where you kind of feed those things into yourself so that you don't reach that level of fatigue? Or do you find yourself that you're already there and it's almost like a triage situation, right? Because I'll be honest, like, that's how I get sometimes. I'm fine until I'm not.
I think it's both. I think it's all of the above.
Yeah.
I go to reconnect every week when I can, to reset, recharge, get back to myself. And still sometimes that's not enough. Still sometimes in the middle of the week, you have to triage.
Yeah.
You have to check your perspective and check yourself. And I think a lot of it speaks to how in tune we are with ourselves. Do we notice the subtle growth of, what is that saying with is it a lobster or a crab, where you can put them in hot water and they'll get out? But if you put them in room temperature and you slowly turn it up, they will boil themselves to death.
You bet.
I think that's a self-check moment, right? Am I warming up right now? What is my body telling me? What is my mind telling me? What are the recordings that are repeating right now? Maybe it's a moment, as you had said, about pausing and having mini mindfulness moments. Back to this practice, right? Mini mindfulness moments where you check in, like, oh, okay, something's happening here. What's happening here, right? What is building? What temperature am I at? Do I need to get out? Do I need to just take a breath? Sometimes maybe all it is just
Breathing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the question of, what am I tolerating? Because, you know, I have found I tolerate a lot because I can, I was told a long time ago, I've got very broad shoulders. I do. I'm built like a linebacker. But It's not for. Oh my gosh. It's truth. I mean, it's one of those good. It's a good thing. You could like put a yoke on me, and I could pull away. But anyways, I can withstand a lot. I know this about myself. It's actually what I consider one of my superpowers. Is that I can deal with a lot. I can show up for people. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I'm able to coach in the manner that I do with clients, and also go through my own set of issues and challenges in life, right? It's because it's not necessarily compartmentalization. It's able to tolerate a load that is quite a bit. Now, you always have to be mindful of what am I tolerating, because things can get heavy, and all of a sudden, you've all been working out in the gym, right? Where you all of a sudden have absolute muscle fatigue. Like you cannot lift.
Yes.
You can't do another squat. You can't, like we've all been there. And that's the point where we really want to avoid, because fatigue for me, if I'm really being honest, is based in fear.
Interesting.
Right? I will allow fear to come in different areas of my life.
Yeah.
And that is what gets me spinning mentally and spiritually and emotionally. And it's the fear that never lets things calm down, that keeps pulling the tax on my system.
Yeah.
And, Mel Robbins, her book, Let Them, right? Like that. That's a fantastic tool to really practice letting go. Let them, and then let me. For those of you that haven't read that book, go read it. It's so good. It's so good. And it's foundationally so simple, but really effective. But again, recognizing that, like, what am I tolerating? What is this contributing to the level of fatigue that I'm experiencing? And is this rooted in fear?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge red flag.
I want to touch on all of the things that you're saying and point out two things for everyone. A lot of the things and the tools, the shifts in perspective, come down to two things. One, we have to pause. We have to pause. If we don't pause, we can't, which is the second thing, get curious. You have to get curious about exactly what you're saying. And also, I think that there are two more things here. The can versus should. You can carry 500 pounds. That doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And when we're looking at our situation and we say, what can I let go, or what can I do, or anything like that, I think it's an internal versus external. Is this something that I need to shift within myself? A perspective, a viewpoint, a 30,000-foot view, a rainbow, right? Is this something in myself, or is this something in my environment that I need to change?
Yeah.
I don't need to carry these weights anymore, or I need to let them be them and I will be me. Is it internal? Is it external? Just because I can, should I? And we pause and we get curious about it.
Yeah.
And that to me is just, that's where all of the rainbows lie, is in those two moments.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's really powerful when you practicing the pause is
Huge.
Huge. I mean, it's really hard to overstate how important just stopping is, and staying still. And it's amazing what comes to your consciousness in stillness. Because in those moments of fatigue and overwhelm, it is without fail when I have set the cruise control and I am doing 80 and I'm not even touching the gas pedal, right? It's just
going.
set.
Yeah.
It's set and I'm not even thinking about it. That's the danger zone for me. So again, resilience is that it's a dance, but it's this heightened awareness of what am I tolerating, and when do I need to pause?
Mm-hmm.
When do I need to sit in stillness and reassess?
Yeah.
Should I?
Mm-hmm.
I know I can.
Should I?
You know, the answer to can is yes,
Yeah.
right? For most of us listening, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Should I?
Should I?
And recognizing also the level of control. That what control do I actually have in this situation?
Yes. Yeah.
What illusion of control do I appreciate? And now I'm trying to pull levers that really don't exist.
Yeah.
And, you know, the spin out that just happens from that.
Yeah.
So, like, kind of, again, I think all of those things get back to that altitude.
Mm-hmm.
Get up high,
Yeah.
get still, and figure out what it is that you're really looking at.
I think I'd like to add two things. One is that you can pause more than once.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one and done.
Yeah.
If you need to take a second pause, you pause. And when we say pause, it doesn't mean that the movement has stopped. I want to make that super clear.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we pause in this moment doesn't mean the momentum's stopping. I think it means that we have turned it inside. And inside, we are pushing that momentum, that growth, so that when we come back outside, we keep going. It's not a parable, a story, I don't know, whatever it's called, about two men. I don't know if I said this on this podcast before, but there were two men who start at the same time of day every day, and they chop wood. And one man leaves for an hour break every single day, and then they both finish at the same time. But every day, the guy who took the break chops more wood. So finally, the one guy's like, what's happening here? You always chop more wood than I do, but you take an hour off. The guy's like, oh, that's easy. I'm sharpening my axe.
That's right.
Those pauses are us sharpening our axe, right? Because that level of control we can only do or have an impact on if we know which levers are the illusion of control and which levers are control, right? We can only move forward in maybe the right direction if we do pause and take that 30-foot view of, oh, okay, I got a little lost in this storm. I thought I was headed north, but really I'm headed south. I need to readjust my sails and head north, right? Yeah. It's the internal movement rather than the external movement. But that doesn't mean that we're not still moving. That doesn't mean we're not still doing that resilience. It's just a pause of doing it inward rather than at the storm.
I love that. And movement, slowing down is movement.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Changing the pace is movement. And so it's not a negative thing. And I think the most important messaging, at least for me, moving through fatigue and dealing with it, recognizing there's the rainbows that we can focus on, rainbow being a reward through the struggle. Sometimes that fatigue feels like failure. I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be feeling like this.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people that build businesses. There's a lot of people that have multiple kids. There's a lot of people, right? Back to that comparison conversation, right? It innately builds so much fatigue in us that we automatically feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how those two things interact.
But feeling a failure?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It feels as though I should be able to do this. I should be strong enough to handle this. I should be the adult in this conversation. I should be farther ahead than I am. I think it honestly just goes back to that pause and the conversation of comparison as well, right? I am where I am, and it's a beautiful place, and I have control over the things that I have control over. And I have this beautiful little growing rainbow at home that I do everything for. And I can give myself grace that when I lose sight of that, I can readjust and come back to that.
Yeah. So fatigue isn't failure.
No.
It's not an indicator of failure. fatigue is a sign that you need to move differently.
Yeah, I love that.
So letting go of like the tethering of the two, because I struggle with that. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't, right? We say we shouldn't shit all over ourselves. We're going to make a t-shirt, right? One
We
day.
are.
Stop shitting on yourself.
Stop shitting on yourself.
But again, letting go of that, because, fatigue is not failure. Fatigue is just a sign that I need to slow down and change movement in some way, either slowing down, going up, something.
I also want to say that I think fatigue is also the signal of growth, right?
Yeah.
When you go to the gym, you fatigue your muscles in
bet.
order to grow the muscles. Maybe fatigue isn't failure. Maybe fatigue is the sign that, man, those muscles that you're growing, those things that you are growing into, this storm that you are becoming, is beautiful and strong. And this moment right here is you at the gym doing too many biceps to build that muscle. And oftentimes when we use this analogy too, it works because you have to break down your muscle
You bet.
in order to build it.
You have to tear it.
You have to tear it.
You bet. And I think fatigue also is representative of an opportunity. Fatigue is something that it's so uncomfortable that we try to escape it as fast as possible.
So quick, yes.
But if we view it as an opportunity, and maybe that's something we just turn over to our viewers, it's like, what opportunity becomes apparent to you in fatigue? There's something that's opening up through that going up, slowing down, whatever. There's something there. So, I don't know,
It's an
it's just to think
opportunity.
about.
I love that. And I also think that maybe because we're on this topic of rainbows, that we can take a moment and we can close our eyes and picture the thing that makes it all worth it. Maybe the rainbow isn't out there, but we create it, and we can write it down. We can tape it to our mirror. We can look at it over and over again, right? We can create the rainbow for us to focus on through this time of uncomfortable growth, through this time of absolute fatigue. We can create the rainbow.
I love that. I love it. Well, thank you for joining us. We are so thrilled that you've joined We Are the Storm. And until next time.
See you then. Thank you for joining. We hope today's episode has ignited a pivotal spark in you and uncovered a fresh perspective that reminds you hold the power to transform every storm into your strength. Share this journey with your tribe and re-listen to uncover hidden gems. Until next time, keep building your resilience, and when you face the storm, don't just weather it, become it.